A lot of the species in the pine barrens, like the pygmy pitch pine, only open their seed pods over 400 degrees.
What? Oh,
Yep.
wow.
So these are species that need fire to spread. I teach the classes and things with fairly rigid structures. And then within those rigid structures are pockets, right?
Yeah,
Like here's an opening, insert something, fuck around and find out within this structure, and this
right.
structure will support you. If you want to make $1 million, if you want to make $1 billion, you've got to figure out what you're giving that's worth that.
What is up? If you're a coach, a service provider, or business owner, you are in the place to learn how to build your business. Welcome to LegendMaker Radio. I'm your host, Tanya Daka. This is where we build legends who rebuild the world through marketing, mindset, and messaging. And each week, I bring you the actionable steps, the inspiring stories, and the motivation you need to move your business forward quickly. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you and your time. Let's jump into this week's episode.
Here we are.
There he
Here I
is.
am.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I'm like going to get my fangirling out of the way for a minute.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for gracing the halls of Legend Maker Global. Because you
Well,
certainly are a legend, though.
oh goodness. Hardly.
No, you are actually, because with 30 years in your field, like that kind of makes you a legend just in and of itself. But just then we're going to add the books and the courses. Is it 8? It's 8, right?
No, no, I don't think so. I lost protection, real sorcery, financial, sex, elements, consorting. I think it's just 6.
Is it? Okay, so Amazon has it listed for 8. So maybe
You
there's
know why? Because for, so real sorcery is one, and then the sorcerer's secrets is another. But real sorcery is just the sorcerer's secrets with a new title.
so what prompted that?
Wiser.
Mhm.
They wanted up to change. It was originally published with New Page. Wiser bought New Page, and they wanted to change the title and give it more. So I updated. I gave like little chapter endings to everything. Like that's what I thought then. Here's what I think now, and.
And that was awesome. That was an awesome ad. So what I want to know though, like, okay, what brought you to New Page? What brought you to the publishing houses? Did you try or were you like approached about writing?
So it's kind of funny. I was doing articles at the time, right? Like I was writing for a small magazine that I helped start in Philadelphia called Behutet,
Mm-hmm.
which for a while, actually, for a little local zine, enjoyed international distribution through Tower Books,
Nice.
which was really cool. So, like, we started it, and then somebody on the magazine staff worked for Tower Books, and thus copies were appearing in Hong Kong and everything else. It was neat.
Yeah, that is cool.
But um, I started writing in the early 2000s thinking I would get my, thoughts out a little bit. So I wrote a couple articles for uh, Witchvox. And the first article was actually rooted in me being absolutely disgusted with everyone on Witchvox that month because it was about spellcrafting that month. And the Witchvox was just filled with people that were like, intention is all that matters. These ingredients don't really like whatever, just imagine it's the right color and none of this really makes it's all about your intention. And then to cap it off, an author named Carl McColman, who was a pagan author at the time, wrote a piece basically spells are a plague to paganism. Like they're like magic and spellcraft is just robbing the rich spirituality of magic and paganism, and that was it. So I wrote this piece called "Spellcrafting: The Real Witch's Craft," and I kind of just went on and was like, no, no, no. Like people did not preserve these recipes, travel to just copy by hand things out of someone else's library. Uh, people did not record these formulas for you to just go, well, I don't have any High John the Conqueror root, so I'll just write HJ the C on a piece of paper and throw it in the mojo bag, and it's just as good. It's all about my intention. And this pagan spirituality that you're talking about, like the roots of witchcraft, like we don't have any ancient witchcraft cults that are real, right? Like we have modern cults and we have folk magic practices, which are mostly Christian. And we have, I'm like, so if you want to look at the roots of the real witch's craft, it's in the spells, it's in the magic. And I just, I lambasted Carl and he wrote for New Page. And so New Page contacted me and asked if I wanted to write a book.
Nice.
So I talked with them and we all agreed that protection was something that needed a fresh voice. People were really like looking at Dion Fortune as like the end all be all of protection magic. And we're talking about a book where she's seriously concerned about, witches blighting crops and black lodges out there who exist purely to do evil, right? Like, just a bunch of people getting together and,
wreaking havoc.
and of course, and she rather racistly, like anyone, like never mind Africa, just like Southern Europe. That's not, it's like if it's from the Iberian Peninsula or Italy, that's probably Satanism, like anything that's not English magic is obviously black evil stuff. So we need a fresh voice. So I started doing I wrote Protection and Reversal Magic. I should add, Carl McColman has since converted to Catholicism, and writes amazing books on contemplative Christianity and Catholicism. So if anybody's interested in mystical Christianity, his books are fantastic. But he still has this bent about magic. Like we've talked, and he's still like, yeah, we get those novena Catholics, the monks just sort of laugh them off, like, well, you're not sitting in silence and hearing the still small voice of God. You're, frantically praying to our Mary the Untier of Knots to, help you win the lottery, or, Saint Joseph, you're burying his statue upside down to sell your house. And that's not what we do. So he's still on the, very spiritual, not very magical side of things.
Gotcha. And that brings me to a really, like, one of your legendary aspects is that you walk with one foot in kind of both worlds. You do Christian magic, you do sorcery, you do Satan. No, I'm sorry. It's not, the word is not demon magic. What is, like?
Well, it's all, if diabolist, I guess you might want to say. So, I look, as has kind of historically been done, I look at the figure of Satan and demons through the lens of the grimoires, which is, it's all part of that Christian worldview. The big difference is rather than evil, I see them as individualistic.
That's right. You've talked about that in classes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the figure of Satan and Lucifer, if we want to take sort of a Baldarian view, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about evil, it's about rebellion, right? And so if we look now in our modern world, and we can see how both structure and order and conformity is important, and so is rebellion and individualism. We raise when our kids are really small, right? It's you
Do the
must
thing.
do
Mm-hmm.
these things or
Mm-hmm.
you'll get hurt,
Right.
right? Like you have to do these things. Like you're the kid cannot just walk out on their own when they're 5 years old.
Right.
And then they get into the teen years, and there's a healthy rebellion there, right? If there's no rebellion, if there's no testing of the boundaries, I think that's worrying as a parent, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
nobody wants like a 16-year-old is like, I just want to hang out with you, mom. Like that, like, no, you want to test the boundaries. You want to go out with your friends. You want to hopefully not do incredibly stupid things.
But you want to find your voice, your
Right.
who you
You're
are.
gonna break curfew a little bit. You're gonna talk with your friends about things that are not, that you're not gonna talk with me about. You're gonna surf for porn and then hide it when you hear your parents coming, and like that's all normal. It's natural.
Yeah.
As much as any of that can, be natural. But um it's that kind of rebellion. And as an adult, we can kind of see things where, okay, no one is doing this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be disruptive in a way that maybe helps grow, maybe helps, create a new niche in an industry. I'm not going to do the same old thing. But at the same time, there's also a matter of, well, these are the norms for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we just toss them out because they're norms and I'm a disruptor, then we just get chaos, right?
Yeah.
We have nothing to replace it with.
Exactly.
Which I think is where the internet has kind of driven us into like a weird place. It's very good at disruption, not so good at building.
Right.
But that's a whole other thing.
That we will get into, because I want to touch on that too as well with you, because you're a big voice in that arena as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like it or not, right?
Yeah, well, I probably open my mouth more than I should.
No, it's not more than you should, because otherwise we're just conforming and just letting things be and doing as it's been done. But
Yeah.
like you said, we have to have that healthy rebellion, and a lot of people don't understand what that looks like, what that's supposed to be, because they've been trained to just do the thing, just don't ask questions.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
it's a big problem, and it brings a lot of big problems with it, and so it's like a chain reaction. So it's good. We like your voice. I like your voice. I have no idea about politics, okay, because I'm Gen X, like, to my core, and it's like, fuck it, and I'm didn't bother with learning all of that stuff in school. I was like, my voice didn't matter. I didn't need to be heard. And then it wasn't until your voice was heard, until I heard your voice, that I started, really realizing that it's this mentality that is dangerous. So yeah. I thank you for that. I thank you for your voice, because it does help those of us who aren't as versed in what's going on. Yeah. And honestly, I don't want to be versed in. I don't want it to be like the thing that like encircles my whole life, and like this is my focus. So I'm happy that you do it, so I can so I can follow in your footsteps. But with that said, though, your magic, bringing your magic back to the arena where like you are in that state of teaching people how to think for themselves, do for themselves. Like that's basically how you teach magic too. Like we ask questions in class and it's like, use it. Now, have you ventured out into the woods? We know about the Pine Barrens. The people watching may not know about the Pine Barrens, but the Pine Barrens of New Jersey is where
Right.
The whole Sorcery of Hekate course came about, which I need to bring back into focus for everybody. But Sorcery of Hekate course was kind of rooted in that area. Have you been out into your new digs and sort of established yourself there? I'm sure you
I
have.
have. I have. Yeah, a lot. So there's a lot of wilderness to cover here in Vermont. And
Vermont, I'm sorry.
but yes, certainly, my property as well as, hiking the mountains and the visiting the spirits of the lakes and things like that. It's a little different. The pines are flat,
Mm-hmm.
and while there are certainly areas of the pines where you can just get lost and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
One of the country's top wilderness survival schools is in Waretown, New Jersey, which you
Wow.
wouldn't think of as like a big wilderness school, but
Right.
uh, the Pine Barrens really are barren. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot down there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the mountains are rocky and a little harder and so on. So yeah, I have definitely gotten out and visited the graveyards and the ponds, and I go kayaking regularly, hiking regularly, but getting
When you
out at
do that
night to
though,
some of the places it can be a little rough,
that's
unless I'm camping.
yeah, I was gonna because in the Pine Barrens you like would do ritual out there at night
Yeah.
normally, right? So do you make it
Yep.
a normal part of your life in Vermont as well?
Not so much, not as much. It's a little colder for
Mm-hmm.
one thing, and come winter, it's
Covered
snow.
in snow.
Yeah, it's a serious amount of snow. Um, so in the summer, the outdoors, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out and doing ritual deep in the woods, no, because while there's plenty of trails, they're also well hiked here because it's a hiking area. Whereas in the Pine
Mm,
Barrens,
nobody
you
goes.
can be out there on a trail and see no one for hours and hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
In the summers around here, you'll be hiking and it can actually be crowded, you know.
Really?
Yes. And depending on where you are, there are road signs in the woods of, because
Yeah.
like, hey, you're climbing up to Deer Leap, but that's also where the Appalachian Trail crosses the Long Trail, and you'll see just signs in the middle of woods, like Maine, that many miles, Massachusetts is that many miles.
I love it.
Yeah. And what's funny is I once picked up a family on the side of the road. They looked absolutely terrified. And the guy I knew, I could see he was from New Jersey. And he was like, when does this trail loop back around? And I'm like,
It
this is
doesn't.
the Appalachian Trail. It goes from Maine to Georgia. Like, it doesn't loop. And he's like, oh, he goes, the trails in New Jersey all loop around. I'm like, yeah, this isn't a park. This is,
This is
so
the
I drove him
trail.
back to his car.
That is
He's like, we've been
awesome.
hiking for hours and we don't seem to be, heading back to the car. I'm like,
Yeah, no, you're
yeah,
not.
yeah. If you want
So
to hike a loop, you have to
go back to
figure
New
out the
Jersey.
map. What's that?
You got to go back to New Jersey if you want to hike
Yeah,
a
you
loop.
got, well, you can chart like roads, and you hike from this road, then down the road to another trail. There are
True.
ways, but
Yeah.
yeah.
True. So with the spirits of place where you are compared to the spirits of place where the Pine Barrens are, like how do you feel a difference? Is there a big difference in the atmosphere and the environment and the energy and the spirits?
There is a little bit. It's hard to put my finger on exactly.
Mhm.
Um, there is actually the spirits here are a lot calmer than the ones in.
Really?
I always found the spirits in the Pine Barrens to be really vibrant and excitable. Um, which is a friend of mine had noted there that the Pine Barrens used to be underwater and that
Mhm.
there is a high quartz content in the sand and that
Mm.
most of the ground there is sandy.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I find the spirits here. I mean, they're spirits of the dead and they're spirits of the trees and
Mhm.
rocks and whatnot, but they're a little calmer, they're a little older, they're more mature. Um, and these mountains are old. These are not the highest
Yeah.
mountains by any stretch, but like the caves in these mountains typically don't have fossils in them like they do out west
Mhm.
because they're older than bones. They're older than
Wild.
when beings formed bones, like vertebrae. Um, Yet we do have some of the best preserved coral and mitochondria fossils and things,
Wow.
even though we're not bordering the
The
ocean.
ocean. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we have some of the best preserved, sea life fossils
That's
in
so
Vermont,
cool.
which is
That is
just
so
very
cool.
strange. But
Now,
yeah,
see, when you said the Appalachian Trail, it's like immediately for me, I'm thinking like that's some strong magic there,
yeah.
right? Maybe it's more magic of the dead rather than spirits of place sort of thing. Maybe
Well,
that's
it's a long trail. So Appalachia in Georgia, and you think about Appalachian magic, right? So
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm,
think about the magic of root work
right.
and practitioners that were utilizing the Psalms and um, you know doing that kind of folk magic, which is really common in Appalachia.
Yeah,
And then as you get further north and it's colder, there's less of that up here. It's a little bit different,
gotcha.
um, which took me a while to get used to.
Really?
But yeah, this is the area where a lot of new thought took hold, right? Like Christian Science
Mm,
was Mary Baker Eddy, I think that's her name, was born not too far from here. Joseph Smith, the Mormon founder, was
mm-hmm.
born 20 minutes away from where I live.
Wow.
Um, but there was a lot of new thought, a lot of that kind of thing going on up here. And then of course
Yeah,
we have the idea at least of Salem witches and the witchcraft of the Puritans
yeah.
and that kind of folk magic, which is a little bit different than the magic of Appalachia, but it's the Appalachian mountain chain nonetheless.
It's still like the history there is just so rich and so, so wow. So I'm
Yeah.
surprised that it's a calmer area spiritually than New Jersey, but that's very cool.
Not less powerful, but calmer. It's also more firm. There's in Vermont, especially, there's not a lot of humans are not encroaching on the wilderness in any kind of devastating way. I mean,
Mm,
Vermont is very green. There's no
I love
billboards.
that.
Got two interstates in the whole state,
Wow.
which you can get on, and there's hardly anyone on them, even at rush hour. There's
Wild.
only 600,000 people in the state, so
I
I
had no
mean,
idea.
yeah, like my kids when they were in grade school here, their grade school had 90 kids K through 6. And
What?
yep. And that was
Oh,
considered one of the bigger schools in the area. Now that they're in
what?
high school, they're going to school with kids that had like 3 kids in 6th grade. Yeah.
Wow.
Or schoolhouses where they combined grades because there just were not enough kids. Yeah.
Wow. That
So
is
it's still like
mind-blowing.
that up here. Whereas in New Jersey, of course, the Pine Barrens are wild, but it's almost like fiercely protected. And you have
Hmm.
the Jersey Devil energy. But what is wild down there and still, of nature is it's encroached upon by New York and Philadelphia, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
Philadelphia presses in the suburbs, press in from the west, and New York presses down from the north, and the
Hmm.
Pine Barrens slowly yield a little bit to development each year. And also the pine, like here in Vermont, we get tons of rain, which is why it's
Hmm.
green. The
Hmm.
Pine Barrens are really characterized by fire.
Mm.
A lot of the species in the Pine Barrens, like the pygmy pitch pine, only open their seed pods over 400 degrees.
What? Oh,
Yep.
wow.
So these are species that need fire to spread. And there are always huge sections of the Pine Barrens that are burned out at any given time.
That is so wild. That is so wild.
Yeah.
So in your journey to where you have come from New Jersey to Vermont and you've made your way in all of these spiritual communities, actually meaning spirits, not spirituality. But
Yep.
like are you of the same what am I trying to say? Like we see you as like the man to go to for magic education. Is your name known amongst the spirits like that? Is that a stupid question?
No, no, it's not. And so the answer is, like, did I show up in Vermont and spirits are like, hey, we've heard about
Bow
you?
to
No,
him.
for sure. However, you get to be known when you make regular offerings, the spirits
Mm,
get to know you quickly because not
okay.
many people do. And so when I say, less wild, I don't mean less potent or
Right.
powerful. I mean less
Right.
wild in the way that like a 40-year-old is less wild than a 17-year-old,
Right. Right.
Um, I've
There's still
had some
power
of
there.
just the deepest, most mature experiences here for sure
Cool.
on old rocks and things like this. I mean, my whole property has just enormous rocks that come up and that I can meditate on and so on. So,
That's so cool.
but yeah, when you make regular offerings, it gets you known. And when you do some magic out in the wilderness, it
Hmm.
gets you known. I'm also a fan of planting things in the wilderness, not plants, but magical objects.
Oh
So
yeah.
there are these devil heads, and I have one here in the office, but there's about 12 of them secreted away in little nooks in the
And
woods.
you put all of those there.
I did, yeah,
That's so
yeah.
cool. What was the drive behind that? What was the mentality behind that? Protection?
It was sort of a way to see if I could cast a net over an area, if you will, and kind of spread the presence of the horned one, which you can think of as the devil, or you can think of as the horned god of paganism, or definitely not the devil of evil, but
Right.
um, wisdom, gnosis, that kind of horned one.
And did you get like a result that, or do you have, yeah, well, I'm guessing it's ongoing, so it's not a resulted thing, but
No,
did you
I
get the result?
definitely feel the connection. And when I look at my, devil's head here on my fireplace mantle in my office, which I can actually like, I don't know if you can see it over there.
Oh
It's
yeah,
over,
there it
yeah, it's
is.
over near the Hekate painting,
Yeah,
uh,
I see
next to
it.
the TV.
So
So not
cool.
exactly a huge altar, but um,
Don't need a huge space though, do you?
no, not for that. But I look and I contemplate. I feel that presence, and I can feel the way in which those other heads sort of act as like cell phone towers.
That's like literally what I was like. It feels like this is the main the main guy, and then you have
Right.
like the not the minions, but but so do you do anything when you like you put them out there? Do you like go out and make offerings out there regularly to each of them? How does that work? Does that consume a lot of your time if you have to do maintenance out
No,
there?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
I wish I was that dedicated.
I know.
I really
I was
do.
like, I don't see you doing that.
No, no, no. I'm I mean, apart from business, I've got two kids, I've got a wife. It's I would love to spin tales of how I do things like, but it's not true. I thought it would be cool to get them out there. I plant each one with an invocation and an offering, and then that's it. Some of them they might not even be there anymore. Some of them somebody might see them and be like, "Oh,
Decide
I'm
to
gonna."
take it.
But none of them are particularly obvious.
Oh, okay. So
None
they'd have
of
to
them,
be
like,
looking.
yeah, none of them are like, who put this here, and I'm gonna call the police, and So, but
So
yeah,
say
they're
someone takes one of those, what happens? Do they reap the rewards of having it or
you
nothing?
know, I don't know. There's definitely no curse or anything.
Yeah.
So let me just make that clear. There's
Yeah,
no
no, for
no harm will come
sure.
should someone take one home or anything like that. Um, I'm not about that kind of, you know,
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, will they reap the rewards?
Depends on
Maybe.
who they are, I guess. Depends on what they
Depends on
do
who
with
they
it
are.
once they
Maybe
get
they'll
it.
be inspired, but for the most part, it'll probably just
Would you
spirit
replace
will
it if
be
you
the
found
object.
found them gone? Found one gone?
I might not. I don't know.
Just depends on your mood, huh?
It was a project for a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, hey, this would be really cool.
Yeah, let's try it
I
and
would
see.
actually love it if people like because every state has places that are like the Devil's Gorge, the Devil's Bridge, the Devil's Pond, the Devil's this, the Devil's that, the Devil's, like
They love a
every
villain.
state has it. I would love it if people would like hide a little like devil's head somewhere in those places. It would be an incredible diabolic network.
All right.
And
So you hear
I'm not
that.
even like I'm not a Satanist by any stretch of the imagination. This is not my main uh thing. It's just, it is that uh there's a little rebellion, there's a
Little middle finger there going on.
little middle finger, but it's not, and that's the thing. It's not, people imagine you're on one side or the other, but is a parent on the other side of a teenager? No, they
That's
still
true.
love the teenager, and they
I don't know.
expect
Some
them.
parents, you might not,
And
sometimes you can't make that assumption.
yeah, well, yes, but you want a certain amount of rebellion, and
Yep,
um and even if it's more than you want, you still love and care for that
exactly.
person, and hopefully the kid still loves and cares for you. There's a mystery there that's deeper than this is evil and this is good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting people to understand that. That's the hard part. But so let me come back to your journey to legend Okay. I know you just humor me. You said you thought it would be something cool to try, right? Like I know as a student of yours for like I don't know how many years now, that has been like your thing. Just go fucking try it and figure it out. If it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, would you say that that is one of the keys that have brought you to where you are? Just fuck around and find out.
Yes. So it is, coupled with studying with people and learning and um, not just learning from books, but learning from people, hearing their stories. So, just like the rebellious teenager who is bound to test the boundaries, they're still aware of the boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They still have this idea that the boundary was set for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They may decide as an adult it was a stupid reason, and now they don't do that.
Yeah.
But they also might get a sense of, oh, no, now I really understand why I wasn't supposed to do that, right? Like,
Right.
and so I there's a good deal of fucking around and finding out. But sometimes I think people glorify that to the extent of,
Throw
why
everything
would I
out.
read about this? Just fuck around and find out. Why
Right.
would I
Right.
take any precautions? Just fuck around and find out. Why?
Right.
So it's with everything, I find myself kind of constantly at odds with, for lack of a better word, the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I think the internet is breaking us as people. I really do. I think that it drives people to the edges, and they feel they need to stake out a claim in one tribe or one way of thinking, and when really all healthy adult decisions and come from a dynamic tension, right?
Yep.
They
Yep.
come from, how is this going to affect the collective, or how can the collective work, yet also individualism, right?
Right.
It comes
Right.
from a tension between these things. And so I see people all the time that are like, you can go into a Hekate group, right? There's God knows how many, and some of them have thousands of people, many of whom know nothing about Hekate whatsoever, because they've just decided that Hekate is a name that they like, and why would they read about her when they can just call her and then she is whatever they imagine her to be.
Right.
I was invited to a Hekate group, and I'm still a moderator there, although I don't visit it very often. But I went on the group, and it caused a huge stir when I said, "This is called the Hekate Study Group. Let's study something. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's pick." And not one of my books. I picked Hekate Liminal Rites by Sarita D'Este, probably my favorite book on Hekate. It's short, it's cheap, sometimes it's free on Kindle. It's pithy as hell. It covers the whole history. There's no nonsense. It just really is probably the best introduction to Hekate in the ancient world, all the way up through Shakespeare, that I can think of. And
Awesome.
it's short, right? So this is like, hey, let's take a chapter a week. We'll read it. We'll discuss it. If you, and I even said, if you can't afford the $5 for the copy, I will send you one. Like, I will
They
literally
lost their
spend
minds.
$100 sending people this book. You would have thought that I had told people that they had to do a semester at the Sorbonne. It was like, why? We don't get to know Hecate from books, and this is gonna, that's not the Hecate I talk to. My Hecate, sprinkles fairy dust and tells me I'm right every day. And it was, I mean, people really got angry and left
Yeah, I bet.
at the
I bet.
suggestion
How
that
dare
they.
you? How dare
So,
you?
when like I teach the classes and things with fairly rigid structures. And then within those rigid structures are pockets, right?
Yeah,
Like, here's an opening, insert something, fuck around and find out within this structure, and this
right,
structure will support you, right?
right, right,
Like, decorate the inside of the room, but first you need to build a solid and stable room.
right.
And I, when I tell, if we say, like, too many people are just like, magic is all about what you believe and screw around and find out. And then other people are like, magic is all about following the rules of this
Mm-hmm.
particular book.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, magic is like any other real thing. It's a dynamic tension between form and freedom.
And it's allowing yourself to learn the rules so that you can break them in a healthy way.
Yes. Think about you're a Gen Xer, so you probably knew, like, it doesn't want to be beat writers, right? Like,
Yeah.
people that are in college and they're just like, I don't need to know to learn how to write. I'm going to be like Kerouac. I'm just going to sit down and stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And oh
Let it
man, I'm
go.
going to be William S. Burroughs because there are no rules. No, these people knew all the rules.
Yeah.
And then they broke the rules.
Right.
If you don't know the rules at all, then,
Then
and it's
you're
the
not
same
giving
with
yourself
music, it's the same of anything.
right. You're not giving yourself the foundation that you need to be able to break them
Exactly.
and do the things. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I struggled with early on in my journey was knowing which thing to listen to, right? Like, there are lots of books on Hekate. Which one is the right? Which one is the wrong, right? So it comes down to being able, and one of the reasons that I ended up in your classes was because you had the real deal. Like, you could feel that it was real. You know what I mean? It didn't
Yeah.
feel like some of the airy fairy other things going on out here in the whatever this is out here. And it so you kind of have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt in choosing what's right when it comes to learning what the rules are, especially when you're bringing it to the internet to find out.
It's going to get harder and harder.
Yeah.
It's
AI,
harder and
baby.
harder to see what's real and what's not.
Yep.
I just purchased a book that my Protection Reversal Magick was listed in Cosmopolitan, and so I
Congrats.
bought a couple other books on the list, one of which I can't say for sure, but I'm fairly certain it was written by AI. And I know this because I recognize
Patterns.
not, yeah, I recognize patterns. I recognize certain segments. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not exactly plagiarized, but it's pretty close to being
Right.
plagiarized. And then I went to look up the author, and you can't find anything about them. They
Oh,
don't
look at
really
that.
exist. So, yeah. And so you've got this kind of weird, like, we went from, okay, some people wrote good books, some people wrote crappy books, and then we went to web pages, and then we went to TikToks, and
Mm-hmm.
you know and with each successive thing we boost the noise and lower the signal.
Yep.
And now with AI, it's sort of like, now we don't even need the people doing insane TikToks. We've got machines to generate
Bullshit.
like bullshit for us. And it's so disturbing.
It is. It really
the
is.
the effect that it's having on just what is real and what is not real.
Yep.
And I mean, there are smart people out there who have they're professionals,
Mm-hmm.
believe things that are just clearly and demonstrably not true,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much information out there and it looks like it might be real. So if you want to believe it, go ahead. And it's yeah, we're in a crisis.
We are. We really are. That's why I hope your voice stays strong and loud, and that you do not pull back from the bullshit that you are pounded with daily, because we need that. We need the sensibility. We need the reminder. I want you to give everybody what you would tell them. What's your advice for someone who is not 30 years into their industry and not what yet well known? What is it that made you what you are that they should consider taking action on?
Yeah. So, my big advice for people in any kind of business is first, service. If you want to make $1 million, if you want to make $1 billion, you've got to figure out what you're giving that's worth that. And that's really the key. It's not money first, it's service first. What are you putting out there? And then honestly, everything can flow from that. The next concern after service is differentiation. How am I different than other people in the marketplace? But even that is sort of encapsulated in service, because if you're the same as everyone else, then you're not really being of service. There's 100 other people out there. What is unique about what you're doing, and or how you're doing it, that is different than what everybody else is doing? That's going to differentiate you in the marketplace. That's how people are going to know, and that's going to be the cornerstone of your success. It's going to be the thing that can't be replicated. After that, it's play it straight and true. I see every year there's new kind of programs and funnels and seminars for this and that, and here's how you do it now, and now we offer a free ebook to people. And then it's my philosophy has been my grandfather's philosophy. He ran a hardware store, my dad ran a hardware store, and the philosophy was serve the customer, charge a good price for what you're doing, tell people what you have, and that's that. Like that's it. That. Don't be shy, don't be sketchy, don't overly package and try to trick people. Don't well, this is an article that ends in a big sales pitch. Just make a sales pitch, right? Like, this is what I have, this is why it's good. And that in itself, in this day and age, differentiates you.
It literally does.
And the thing is, when you're 30 years in, then you'll see that you're still there when other people that were doing these kinds of things, hopping from one program to the next, or one weird, oh, well, what we're going to do is we're going to inflate the pricing and then give a 70% discount so we can, like all kinds of like sketchy price things. And just be solid, be stable, tell people what you have and sell it. And that's that. Like, that's the secret. Just pretend you're running an old school hardware store. That's
go back to basics. Go back to basics.
That's how I'm still in business. Is I provide something that I would have wanted and paid for, and
that's worked.
beyond that, I don't have any secrets.
That's it. That's
That's what I would tell people starting off. Just
that's cool.
straightforward.
Going back to
Be different,
basics.
be of service, and then
tell people about it.
And tell people about it. Play it straight.
Yep. And it has served you well. And I am so honored that you jumped on here with me today and shared your wisdom and allowed us to get a look into Jason Miller, the author, the magician, the sorcerer, the teacher. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. That's a wrap on this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining Jason Miller and I. And if you'd like to find out more about the Sorcery of Hekate, or Jupiter, the Sorcery of Achievement, or the Black School of St. Cyprian, or even one of his many books like Financial Sorcery or Consorting with the Spirits, all are highly recommended and have a great track record. You can check them all out on strategicsorcery.net. That's strategicsorcery.net. Check out his goods and find what you like. Thanks so much for being here with us. I appreciate you. I'll see you next week.